Welcome to Universally Speaking with Rahim Islam on 860 AM WNOV, The Voice. I am your co-host, Ptosha with a P, Davis. And our host, Mr. Rahim Islam, is sitting right here next to me in the studio, live and in living color. How you doing, Rahim?
I'm fine, sister. How you doing?
I am doing awesome today. I'm doing awesome.
Good, good. You sound like your voicemail, your voice message.
We're not going to discuss that. Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. If you don't have my number and you don't know about my voicemail, and nothing you don't know what he's talking about. Anyway, thanks, Martha, for the shout out. We're already on top of it. The song that you heard when we were coming in was a song that was written and produced by Gamble and Huff for B.B. King, the late legendary B.B. King, in 1974. The name of the song is aptly entitled Philadelphia. B.B. King, who was born in Mississippi, died today at the age of 89. And as I was doing some research, found out that it is true. Gamble and Huff have just about worked with everybody. So we thought we would give you a little bit of that sampling of that song. It happens to also be one of the only all-instrumental songs that they produced, and also that Mr. King actually put out on an album. So we obviously are going to begin the beginning of our show, as we always do, with our digital libation. I'm just going to read just a snippet for you. Mr. King broke through to white audiences with his 1964 album Live at the Regal. He was allowed to play high-profile gigs at the Montreux Jazz and Newport Folk Festivals and at the Fillmore in San Francisco, and he toured arenas with the likes of the Rolling Stones in 1969. That same year, his album Completely Well included his signature song of sorrow, The Thrill Is Gone. This went on to be his biggest hit and went to number 15 on the pop charts. Hits were a little sparse for him after then, but Mr. King continued to record prolifically in subsequent decades. He frequently worked with his contemporary Bobby Blue Bland, and in 1974 did sessions with producers Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff for the album Friends that produced the instrumental Philadelphia. Working the road relentlessly, always with a sizable band dressed like their leader in dinner jackets and bow ties, he collected many honors along the way. So today, for our digital libation, not only do we honor the great blues great B.B. King and his connection, but we also honor all the people like him that have just legendary. Our culture has produced such legendary people, and as I was sitting discussing this earlier today with Mr. Jones, talking about how you can see the change of the message and the music through the years, and he started to talk to me about when the Quiet Storm actually started on the radio and why they started Quiet Storm.
Was that out in D.C.?
Mm-hmm. But he talked about why it was started. It was after the Civil Rights Movement, and it was to calm you black people down.
Right.
So this is, once again, brings us back to just how important music has been all throughout all of the different struggles, the civil rights struggle and everything. Music has just always been there, and I love this piece. I had never heard it before and didn't even know that they did instrumentals, but loved it, and it's called Philadelphia.
Yeah, Kenny did. I think it was at least 3 albums with his orchestra and house band called MFSB, and so I know people think what MSFB,
but it means something else.
It means mother, sister, father, brother, versus what your other your messy minds be thinking about. Because that's what Kenny is all about. MFSB, family, universal, all those kind of terms were Kenny Gamble's terms that he believed in. He still does, and so they did a lot. They cut a lot of music. Just the just the musical side,
instrumental,
like
true musicians.
Or even like the Soul Train theme,
right, which is instrumental.
Right, all instrumental. Although they have a little piece at the end, Soul Train, but that was also named Philadelphia, or the Sound of Philadelphia. In fact, that was named the Sound of Philadelphia.
The Sound of Philadelphia.
Yes,
okay.
TSOP, right. And so, but B.B. King, we pay honor and we pay tribute to your greatness. We pay tribute to your legacy. We pay tribute to your influence on so many of the world. I mean, your influence was legendary and huge, and your influence was the foundation for not only just musicians but music.
Yes.
The rock and roll, rhythm and blues, jazz, you name it, he influenced it. He was the one of the founders and architects of the music. So we pay tribute to you, and may your transition be one of least difficulty and ease, and that your resting place be reflective of the tremendous contribution you gave to us in humanity, and that your reward be equal or exceeding the commitment and the contribution you made to all of us, and to your peers that you're now joining. May you guys make the greatest sound. May you guys continue to create the greatest music. And as we transition, that we know that when we get there, we'll be jamming with you.
We'll be jamming right along.
And we'll lose the pain and the struggles of this dimension, and we'll enter the dimension that we don't know about, that you are already now transitioning into, and that we ask that Almighty God make that transition a peaceful one. And so, on behalf of all the people who are influenced by your music and influenced by your person, an unbelievable, incredible person, we say thank you.
Ashe. So, that was pretty good considering you knew like what, 30 seconds?
Yeah, I didn't know. I mean, but I know B.B. King. I definitely know B.B. King, and I love B.B. King. And I love his spirit. I love him. I love black people. I love black people who accomplish. And I'm gonna talk a little bit today about the concept of oppression. And what does oppression mean? And what is really oppression? Because we hear that word a lot. But what you'll see in oppression, when we are oppressed, you see, in spite of the oppression, you see the kind of brilliance of a B.B. King.
Right.
And no matter how oppressed that he might have been, and trust me, they tried to clip him every step of the way, but his genius and his brilliance exceeded it. And so something's going on that in us, that we have in us, that we need to see in us, because others see us and they fight to try to stop it and to what I call oppress, to suppress and oppress us as a group. But he represents the excellence, our excellence. He represents our struggle. He represents also our ability to persevere. To win no matter what. And this is the spirit that we have to take, and this is the spirit we must have. And these are the models and examples we have in our community. And so I'm saddened by his death, but I'm also loving and appreciating the value and celebrating his life and the many contributions that he's made to us as a people. So I love B.B. King, and I will always love B.B. King, and I love, like I said, black people.
I do too. I love black people too. I really, we don't need, I know you always hear me say I love black. I do love black men. I do love black men. That's a good thing because there's a lot of sisters out here that don't. So I'm proud of the fact that I love black men.
Well, we shouldn't call them sisters then.
Oh, okay. There are a lot of females, of African American females.
How can you call somebody a sister and they don't love black men? I mean, I like to say there's a lot of brothers out here don't like black women.
The name of brothers.
I don't call them brothers.
What you call them? African Americans?
I can't say what I call them.
So you outnumbered today 2-1.
Oh, that's cool. I'm always outnumbered. It's no problem.
Always outnumbered, always outgunned.
No problem.
Walter Mosley.
No problem.
We are joined in the studio again today by our special in-house guest. She's going to be my new ride or die co-host.
I like that.
Principal Dunlap-Parker is joining us again today. We are so excited to have her. We got a lot to talk about on the show today. I, for one, and I don't, Rahim probably can speak to this better than I can. I don't recall me ever calling him or texting him after reading one of his stories, which they're not stories, they're articles, teaching lessons. But after I read this week's books, somebody said they're books, their curriculum for teaching.
Don't hate, yeah.
After I read,
hey, look, look. What happens when I start writing? I mean, I'm just like,
you know, in zone.
Hey, look, you know what? Sometimes when I'm writing, let me tell you something. Sometimes when I'm writing, I get so emotional. I mean, so emotional. I can't even tell you how emotional I get, and I get so angry because some of the things that I uncover, I know there's no response to. I don't hear a response. I don't hear no one talking about it. Right. I don't hear nobody saying it.
Didn't somebody know about this?
I mean, do you know what's happening? And so I always go back to the Chicago song. Does anybody really know what time it is? You know, or a Marvin Gaye song. What's going on? You know, I mean, so let us stop. And some people might say, well, I'm trying to romanticize the problem. No, I'm not. I'm a doer. I'm a worker. I am not romanticizing about the problem. For everything that I'm talking about, I'm working like crazy trying to address. And in time, you'll know that. But the bottom line is, I think that we don't know how bad things are.
Right. And
when I look at it and I see it and I start to uncover it and really unpack some of these issues, it frightens me.
It's frightening.
I mean, it frightens me to the point where it shakes me to my core, and it gets me so emotional. One, that it's happening, and two, that there's no action.
But it's something to get emotional about. It's something that maybe your words or your articles can provoke some thought and start some conversations, because these issues are deep and they're rooted so deeply and affect so many people. And oftentimes it's easier to turn your head to it opposed to face it head on and do something about it. So, I mean, I appreciate the articles. I think that
Keon said the books,
the novels, I mean, I appreciate it. I don't mind turning to page 3 and continuing on page 5, because it's thought provoking and it's something that keeps you up at night.
She said 3 and 5.
She said, yeah, I know. She got it in there.
3 and 5.
35, page 35. Mr. Jones, you didn't hear that.
Well, I have to say that this week and Rahim sends his articles, doesn't matter where he is, all over the world, he sends them, he's traveling. And I received this article, and it's called "Where is Black Leadership?" And as soon as I got it and read it, I always read, and we talked about this before. First, I read for, we have a team of people, about 4 or 5 of us, that actually go through and edit his things. So I read
and censor his articles.
Well, I give them. They can do whatever they want, because sometimes
he'll even come back after and say, "Ptosha, take that out."
I censor myself. Trust me. And sometimes I like that. I didn't feel good at what I said. Ptosha, did that go in yet? Well, take that line out. What line? Go to page 25, line 15.
or take out every
paragraph,
time.
Right.
Every time I said
X. Yeah. Just take it out. Replace it with so and so. Because I'm like, I don't know. That don't feel good. I know it's the right thing to say, but I don't want to piss people off.
Right.
And you know, and not them to even understand it.
Since when?
No, but shoot, no. Well, since a lot. I mean, I'm really measured in what I say, trying to be gentle about it, Keon, and not confront an obvious, foe, and not wake up a foe.
Right.
That I don't need to wake up. I'm looking at a campaign we're involved in Philadelphia, and this person had the ridiculous stupidity to bring up something that nobody was talking about, nobody cared about. Well, everybody cared about, but nobody was saying anything. As long as we were all silent, we were cool. So he brings up stop and frisk, and we want to talk about stop and frisk, but he attached it to the people. And now he created enemies with the people. So I'm trying not to attach it to people, so it won't be personal. So if the shoe fits, you wear it. If the shoe doesn't fit, you just keep it moving. So that's how I approach it.
So I immediately I edit for logic, and then we have other teams that grammar and.
So you logical.
I'm logical. I'm your alter ego. I'm the yin to your yang.
All right, yang. All right, yang or ying.
The yin. So I'm going through this article, and while I'm normally supposed to be reading, because he'll say, "Well, did you read what I wrote?" And I'll be like, "Rahim, yeah, I read everything you wrote," but because I'm going through for logic and not for what it's about.
For
content, when I read this one, I immediately stopped. I read it all the way through again, and then I texted him, and I think I called him as well and said, "Rahim, this is so good." And that's just how good this particular article is. And then I called the publisher of the paper and read it to him, and he agreed with me. So that must mean, if he agreed with me, I must be like.
Oh, well, he's my biggest supporter. So he's like, I call him like, some people are just biased, they just naturally biased because they support you. So even though
tell the truth.
There's no question about it, but he definitely is a big supporter.
So I read it through a couple times, and then I called Rahim, and we kind of talked about it, and pretty much when he finishes writing, he's moved on to the next thing. So he's still not stuck in this. He's moved on either to the next article, the next issue, the next fire we need to put out, the next meeting or whatever. So I'm still like, this is really good, this is deep, and I'm like all in the middle of it, and he's like, yeah, okay, whatever, whatever, and and I'm like, but no. So I did talk to the publisher about it, and we read it. So I really want everybody, we're going to share a portion of it today, but please read this. If you've been following any of the things that have been happening around the country, pick up a copy of the Courier to read the article. Go online to MilwaukeeCourierOnline.com. You can call in and join us on the show today, 444-5250, for your questions or comments. Pick up this article. It is called "Where is the Black Leadership?" And if you've been following any of the things that have been going on around the country with blacks, black men specifically, but black people, our communities, read this article, because it hits home about all of that. It says, where is the black leadership? We witnessed black leadership in Baltimore last week. And so we're going to go to break, because I know some of you are saying, what? In Baltimore? Man, it was crazy in Baltimore. It was some black leadership going on in Baltimore last week. We're going to talk about that when we come back from the break. You are listening to Universally Speaking with Rahim Islam on 860 AM WNOV, The Voice. Welcome back to the Friday edition. We got a Monday and a Friday edition now. the Friday edition of Universally Speaking with Rahim Islam on 860 AM WNOV, The Voice. So when we went to break, we were talking about black leadership and the fact that with everything that happened in Baltimore, and unless you've been living under a rock somewhere or in a coma, you potentially may not know what happened in Baltimore over the last week or so, that there was a demonstration of black leadership in Baltimore. I'm telling you guys, you got to read this article. Rahim, as they said, what you talking about?
Well, I've been consistently talking about one, how do we get out of this mess that we're in? What are the pathways? I mean, I had 2 or 3 meetings a day, and someone brought up in each of those meetings the difficulty that lies in front of us, but in that discussion was that they had basically checked out. They had given up. I'm
done.
It can't be done. And my position, and none of this stuff is final. Everything can be addressed if you address it correctly, if you understand and diagnose it correctly. And so we were talking about the lack of kind of economic support, but really it's tied to a more damaging mindset. And that mindset is a mindset that we have. We have to recognize that mindset as a people that we have, and we've been taught that it's okay for me to and this is white supremacy and black inferiority is best. It's okay for me to support somebody white and don't have any problem making sure they get rich. But I question when I'm going to support somebody black and they have the potential to get rich.
Exactly.
So that is a disease, and that is something we have to hit head on. And the only way you can hit that head on is you got to create a critical mass of people who don't believe that and produce whatever outcome you're looking at. So all of it ties back to organizing our community. And so when I look at leadership, our community needs people who think like that, who are focused like that. That's leadership. Taking people who don't want to be someplace to somewhere where it's in their best interest to be. Mm-hmm. And so we need black leadership to do that.
But when I first met you during my second interview, you asked me a question and you said, where are our black leaders? And I said, well, we really don't have like those type of people, but I guess I would say us. And this article really summed it up and brought it home for me, because the reality is, though we're talking about our elected officials, the reality is the adults that we are, and to role model the behaviors that we expect from our young people, we've all got to emerge as leaders, especially in this community. And there has to be a united front. We have to all be on the same page, realize the importance of doing it, and do it because 9 out of 10 of us are right here from this city and have lived and seen quite a bit. We lived through the Michael McGee era. We lived through when we could go to Fondy Mall and it was Gimbals, and we could get right to Capitol Court and we knew that was the spot. And now to not have those places there and not have that history, I find myself talking to my children and my students about just what Milwaukee once was, and where we did have a thriving Afro Fest. It wasn't even called African World Festival back then. It was Afro Fest. And everybody knew this was the spot and this is where we went. So I think that when we look at black leadership, we've even got to really personalize this and make it about ourselves being those leaders that we need our young people to see.
And one of the things I would caution, what I've seen, the psychological ramification of what you just said, is that I take the words all and we don't need all. And what happens is if the test is that, for example, you involved in assessments, and if the test is that we have to have all, then we get nothing. We don't win, because the question is, well, what is really necessary to change this dynamics? And so a lot of times we're looking at these kind of language, and so it creates in us our inability to move because we know it's not achievable. So the leadership that we're describing starts with just the 3 of us, or the 4 of us, or the 5 of us here, and then the 6 of us, and the 7 of us, and then we get to 10, and we get to 12. All is not necessary, because there are there's a lot of people who are basically just waiting to be told what to do. They just need to just tell me what to do, and if we can tell them what to do that's in their best interest, that they benefit from. See, a lot of things that we're going to have to do, or some group, I call them the vanguard, going to have to do, there might not be a direct benefit, but we know it has to be done, and we know that if we do it, someone will benefit from it. And so our goal is to figure out a way how we can get a critical mass of people who are thinking together, working together, and that we can change these dynamics and have what I call collective leadership.
Thank you for holding, caller. You have a question or comment?
Yes. Good afternoon, Ms. Davis.
Good afternoon, JT.
How you doing, dear?
I'm good, dear. How are you?
I'm not bad.
That's
and
good.
Before I say something to Muhammad Rahim Islam, I just want to say something to your other special guest you have there this day. Good afternoon to you, dear. I forgot your name.
Ms. Dunlap-Parker.
Good afternoon, too. Thank you for calling in.
Good afternoon to you, Ms. Parker. And Rahim, what I want to say to you, sir, thank you so very much. Because I'll be reading your articles that you write in a community journal or the Courier. You make a whole lot of sense. It's too bad people don't read your articles, sir, to see what you're talking about and where you're coming from. Because it's not for just saying nothing and talking loud and saying nothing, Rahim. You just tell the truth and you tell it like it is, sir.
T.I.S.
Rahim, are you still there, sir?
I'm here, brother. Thank you. I'm trying to, the goal is
digest that.
Well, the goal is to just one of the, I think I would say the next couple months, we're laying the foundation for the conversations that can turn into action. And so, because really that's what it's all about. Really right now is just preparing our community for what's next. It's like you can't go into the military without going through boot camp. You can't really take on this responsibility and this role if you're not really ready. And doing it for the wrong reasons is also an indication that we're not ready. So part and parcel of what I've been attempting to do is just it can sometimes state the obvious, but the obvious sometimes is sometimes not so obvious. And so and then I ask the question. I try to ask the question all the time. Well, then what's next? How do we know where we are? We know what the challenges are. We know these issues, or at least we kind of got an idea. Then what do we do about them?
Rahim, excuse me, respectfully, sir, I understand what you just said earlier, especially when you introduced a little veterans, being a veteran, since I am a veteran, served in Vietnam, sir. But what I want to say respectfully, I understand where you're coming from and what you're saying. But you know what I have a problem with, Rahim, is how do we really get the message out? How can somebody like myself or anybody get the message out? Because you're getting good, you tell it like it is. You're giving us some food to digest, to make us healthy. But if nobody's really listening, what can we do to better that information that you trying to provide for us, Rahim, and try to get us to see, which I respect you for, sir, and thank you for that. But anyway, Rahim, what can we do better to pass the word on?
Well,
I'll hang up and listen.
Okay, thank you. One of the things that I think that we're doing, a couple of things. One is that once you write something, it's like recording a record. It doesn't go away. So it's there. We're cataloging everything that we do. We're cataloging all of the speeches that's being made. We're cataloging all the writing that's been done. And there's a ton of information that you don't have, but we're going to deposit. But the other thing we're going to do is, and in one location, the other thing we're doing is aggregating others who are on the same path. I had a discussion the other day with Dr. Ben Chavis, and this brother is absolutely phenomenal. There are a number of different people who are thinking the same way, saying the same thing. So getting them all together, getting them into one location where the average person can go either online or something that
You can see it.
well, you know, good. Online that and Ptosha's been working behind the scenes, pulling all that together. The second thing that I think that we've been doing is rolling out the universal plan in Milwaukee.
Right.
And so I'm so honored. I'm sitting here next to one of our principals, but I see go to the Milwaukee Courier. Not only right below the article is a beautiful advertisement for the principals of the 4 schools that we have here in Milwaukee. And so in less than 3 years, we now have 4 schools. We have 2 K4 through 5th grade schools, 1 middle school, and now we just started our high school. And we're not finished. We're just beginning. We're also involved in some real estate development with the Moores Group and the restoration of the Garfield School on 4th and Garfield. 4th and Garfield, right?
Between Garfield and North Ave.
And the redevelopment of the historic Black Holocaust Museum. We're now talking about real estate development, community real estate development, and master planning for neighborhoods. So we're also now talking with the school district of Philadelphia, the school district of Milwaukee, and the city of Milwaukee around the whole rites of passage for our young boys, our young males. Hopefully we can prevent some of these things from happening. So a number of different things are taking place there, and so they're behind the scenes. So relatively soon you'll see. And lastly, for the Milwaukee, we're going to launch the Milwaukee Community of Leaders, which we believe will be the umbrella organization that will bring and restore and create the voice that we need to be able to have the number of things we have to be working on, the multiple fronts we have to be working on for us to be able to move the needle, because all of these issues are interconnected. They're interconnected, and you can't really solve the education issue until you start addressing the family issue. You can't address the family issue until you can address the black male issue. You can't address the black male issue not addressing the incarceration issue. You can't address the incarceration issue without addressing the economic issue. And as like I said, the hip bone's connected to the knee, and on and on and on. They all connected. And the connection that most important that we have to connect is we have to restore black leadership. And in black leadership, historically has been really an oxymoron. So we have to restore the credibility of black leadership. That leadership, black leadership, is not for any individual, but black leadership is really defined on how we are responding and working to support our community, not as transactions, not as free agents, but as institutional, structural ways that we can be able to support our community.
Caller, thank you for holding. You have a question or a comment?
Yes, I have a comment. Good afternoon to the panel. And Brother Rahim, I'm proud to hear you guys have something going on. It's surprising because it's sad. You have to look at the news every day. Somebody shoots somebody. Somebody's dead. It's like Iraq and Milwaukee, and people from out of town, like my daughter, call it Kill Milwaukee. But anyway, I just want to warn the brothers and sisters between Capitol along Fond du Lac. Be careful of your speed limit. And if you don't have your business together as far as your license and insurance, they're pulling in. I see nothing but our people pulled over left and right the last 2 days. So be careful along this stretch. And then tomorrow, if you know some young person need a job or any person need a job, there will be an open, on-the-spot interviews at the McDonald's. I was in Pickasay. The young lady behind me was a manager. She said her name is Isis. And I'm not mistaken, she said it's going to be from 2 to 4. It's call Highway 100 McDonald's. It's going to be open interviews from 2 to 4. And if you know some young person or somebody that's need a job or seeking employment, to be there tomorrow and be prepared. And they are hiring.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great weekend, everyone.
You too.
Thank you for the call. And I'd like to just comment on the simulation with regards to, it feels like we're in Baghdad or Iraq, as he said. And I make that argument, and I make that argument very, very well. And I try to make that argument consistently. And I want to hold America accountable for what it does outside of this country that it fails to do inside of this country. Yes, we are right here in Baltimore, right here in Milwaukee, right here in Philadelphia and Detroit, and everywhere where we are a minority. We have the tale of two cities, and we have a city where there's very prosperous, where it's very growth. The economic growth is just off the chart. But yet in the neighborhoods and in the communities that we live in, they're absolutely on fire. And they look like and have all the characteristics of a Baghdad. And so, but yet America is spending millions, billions, and billions of dollars daily to try to prop up those communities and all over the country. But yet, economically, their infrastructure, yet they refuse to spend $1 in our communities. This is unacceptable. And it's unacceptable. It is acceptable if we don't do anything about it. In America, we have the ability to do something about it. But it's called the democracy. It's called a voice. You have to have a strong voice. You have to have organization. You have to have structure and infrastructure. You have to build. No one's going to do these things for us. We have to do them for ourselves. So when I ask, where's the black leadership, that's the leadership I'm talking about. Who is having the conversation about how much does America spend outside of America to support economic infrastructure in countries all over the globe when they refuse to spend $1 right here in our neighborhoods? We know we lack infrastructure. We know we lack economic investment. We know we lack investment in our education systems. We know the only real dollar that they actually have no problem spending is when it comes down to enforcement, incarceration.
Right.
All right, and so that's
we
why.
Need to call out the National Guard, or if we need to have.
Oh yeah, yeah. So that's unacceptable. So that dynamic is not going to change until we change it. And so the question is, how do we do it? What do we do? What's step 1? What's step 2? What's step 3? What's step 4? How do we do it? What is reasonable for us to be able to achieve in our lifetimes? This is the approach that we have to have. This is what we call leadership.
And then also something that you wrote about almost a year ago is not only what we're able to achieve in our lifetime, but laying the groundwork for the next generations. Right. And you used as a sample to show that all of the legal work that was done prior to the civil rights movement, all of the decisions and the back and forth and things that we don't even think about that were done to lay the framework for what actually happened decades later. Those things happened decades before. Like
I think you're referring to the historic Brown versus Board of Education, which was the first major legislation. Although when I was reading and studying the issue, because I did not a long piece, but I studied the lynchings that took place in our country. Mm-hmm. And I found out that there were almost 5,000 pieces of legislation, anti-lynching legislation introduced to Congress. Only 3 passed. I mean, you would think anti-lynching?
Right, everybody would be like, oh, that's a no-brainer.
Exactly.
This is what we're dealing with, brothers and sisters. This is what we're dealing with. This is oppression at its highest level. If you got to fight for an equality around stopped lynching us.
But
and by the way, it didn't stop formally until the mid '60s.
Right.
Where lynching there's some consequences.
You mean legally, because it's still.
Well, there was consequences. There were before the law didn't protect us.
Right.
So you could lynch a black person, and it was no consequence because there's still the deck was stacked against us, and there were legislations introduced after introducing, only to fall and not pass.
So that means that somebody stood on the floor or stood in committee and fought for the reasons against this legislation.
And guess what? So the point I'm making, you said that the work that was being done prior to the Civil Rights Acts of 1960, the Voter Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act, the Fair Housing Act, the Anti-Discrimination Acts, all those acts were, and Brown versus the Board of Education, all of those things took nearly 100 years in the making.
Foundation. So somebody was doing some work, laying some foundation.
Without question. And here's the problem, though, brothers and sisters. The problem is that when those acts were enacted, the filibustering for the Civil Rights Act was the longest filibustering in the history of Congress. In the history of Congress. So it happened, and it passed by a thread. It got through, and it was signed by Lyndon Johnson. But the point I'm making is that the work that took place to get it there, but this was not perfect legislation. This was not perfect legislation.
And
this was the beginning legislation. Legislation should have been built on, or it was built on, nearly 100 years of activity previous. But yet, when we signed this legislation, when this legislation got enacted, we took our foot off the pedal. We act as if that we had arrived, we had achieved. But yet, the enemies of this legislation would immediately begin to adapt and to transform the pain and the oppression into different type of vehicles. And now we have now conditions that are worse than pre-1960. They're worse than. They're pre-1960 conditions now. We had probably about 300,000-400,000 African Americans in prison in the 1960s. Now we have 1.5 million. Okay? So we had in 1960, we had nearly 90% of our families headed by mothers and fathers, where today we have nearly 80% of our families with single parents. We have now children having children now at a clip higher than we've ever. We have now, conditional right now, we have nearly 40% of us as a people will never be married. This is the highest number that we've ever had. We have health disparities. We have wealth disparities that have never been seen before in the history. So all of these legislations, they weren't not meant to resolve anything. They were beginning steps that we should have had. So now we know all these things. Or maybe we don't know all these things, but we need to know these things. And then the question is, what do we do from now? Where do we go from here? And where we have to go from here is now we have to draw a line in the sand and say that here are issues. We must organize. We must aggregate our capacity. We must build leadership at all costs, because it's going to take strong leadership. It's going to get us from where we are right now to where we need to be, and begin to, as in the brother said, he was in the military, take that hill, control that hill, then take the next hill, control the next hill, and let the next generation have a chance, a fighting chance, that they don't deal with even more mounting problems that we're dealing with today.
We have a caller. Caller, you have a question or a comment?
Yes. This is Ruben Hopkins with the Wisconsin Black Chamber. How are y'all today?
Good. How are you today, Ruben?
I'm good. And I couldn't agree with Rahim more than I already do. I think that what I found is that our biggest challenge is not white folks. I mean, yeah, of course, they're a challenge, but our biggest challenge are black folks. Is for me. I'm trying to deal with black leadership. trying to bring the black organizations, the African American Chamber, the Urban League, bring all of these organizations together to the table and say, at what point are we going to stop sitting around taking it on the chin and fight? They don't want to fight. And I'm saying this openly and publicly that they don't want to fight. They want to go along to get along, and that's pretty much it. Many of those same organizations was not at the event that you held, Rahim, at over where your school is. There were a lot of them that wouldn't even come to your event. There are a lot of them that they don't want to come to the table because if they get associated with these radical Negroes, they scared they're gonna hurt their funding.
Right.
They don't want to fight. They are in it for what they have, and they don't want to do nothing that's going to jeopardize what they have. And that's the sad part of this thing, is that rather than fighting for the whole or for the collective, they're fighting for their little piece of the pie that they have, to keep their little piece of the pie that they have. They don't want to fight. It ain't in them. And so that's why these young folks are not listening. When you try to tell these young folks, hey, don't go out in the street and be, tearing up stuff and breaking stuff, they don't want to hear that. Because what's the alternative? They don't see the leadership fighting for any of the mechanisms that would change this thing. We're not talking about annexing the central city, because if we were talking about annexing the central city away from the city of Milwaukee, it'd be a different discussion. They're not fighting for nothing. And so when you don't see the leadership fighting for anything, you're like, why do we continue to put our future in the hands of these people who are in leadership that are not willing to fight for anything? They are not ready to fight for nothing. And that is the biggest problem that I run into dealing with the black leadership, is they'll talk black when you're in the room with them. Oh, when you're at the table with them, they black as you can be. But when it comes to signing documents, when it comes to putting forth initiatives where you got to sign your name on something or you got to bring your organization to the table, all of a sudden, well, I got to take it to the board and see what the board has to say. Oh, the board don't want us to do this. The board don't want us to do that. But then you run into a board member don't even know what you're talking about. So this is the foolishness and the silliness that we have to deal with month in, month out, day in and day out, is that you have a black leadership that don't want to fight. They just don't want to fight.
Well, Brother Rubin, let me tell you something. I fundamentally agree with you on two occasions. One is that it's not what they're doing to us anymore, it's what we're not doing. And so most, if not all, the things that I talk about is what we can do. Two, right. I think that I still have hope and faith that we can create a critical mass of people who believe the way you believe and the way I believe, that if we lock arms together, we can expose them. We can expose everybody. Our challenge is that we got to take step two steps at a time, as opposed to the end game, and work. And I also say, in everything that we do, if whatever we want as a people, we're going to have to earn it. The earning is the part that when I'm describing, is the earning is the stuff that you're describing. We got to walk through and deal with these issues and get manageable game plan strategy to address them and work our way through until we achieve success. And so that's why I'm looking forward to meeting with you. I'm looking forward to talking about and sharing with you this concept, which we've launched already in Philadelphia. We're having reasonable success, but we're right in the thick of the challenges and the being able to prevail when we see absolute ignorance and not and attack it strategically, scientifically, and not emotionally. If we attack it emotionally, we lose.
I have been telling folks that come to the chamber and who ask my advice, I say, look, here's what you do from now on. Any of these aldermen, when you run into one of these aldermen, start with them. Ask them, what was the home ownership rate for African Americans when they took office, and what is it today, since they've been in office, the years they've been in office?
Well,
they'll be able to tell you.
It's impossible. Because that's not a measurement for many of them. Because many of them don't even have a platform. We got to give them an agenda. Mm-hmm. I want to basically say to you and to also our listeners. Here's what I think. I think I can deliver is create a table where we all have a seat at the table. I've done it already, and I want to share with you. And I take the position that Truman, I think it was said. He says we can accomplish more if we're not concerned about who gets the credit. I believe in that 1,000%. So I'm prepared, and I am totally prepared, and I'm not. This is not a conversation for me. So I definitely want to sit down and meet with you and discuss with you and strategize with you, because you have the tangibles, I think, that are necessary. One, you understand, your vision is clear, you have the passion, that's very clear, but we now have to move into action, and it got to be strategic. And so I think that's kind of our next steps.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to it, and I think that the only issue I had with the event we had before, the event where we had all the people that were sitting up on the stage, and some of those same people that were sitting up on stage were some of the same people that have been causing the problems all along. But I understand that we don't always recognize that when we try to put something like this together, and that's part of the process, that you got to deal with folks that historically have been some of the same gatekeepers that you thought were going to, do some of the things that you had hoped would be done on behalf of the community.
Well, here's what I was saying.
But the other part, real quick, I want to say is that there was no instruction for me as to here's what we do next. And so it's like we've been waiting for, okay, we had that meeting, now what's next? There was no, here's what we do
Absolutely.
next. How do we begin to put together the economic development part of it? How do we begin to look at the how this all fits together and where it all starts?
Okay. And
so
I'm in agreement with you. I'm in agreement with you. Here's what I want to say to you before you leave. All right, is this everything? Your analysis is on point, 1,000%. There were mistakes that were made, and I'd be the first to say that maybe we're moving a little faster than we should have been moving, but it was with good intentions. But here's what I would say that also that is very, very important and critical. And I've learned along the way, and I'm only advising you and all of us that we, no matter how bad the situation is, we still need each other. And so what we have to do, and we have to be able to, and someone, very wise man told me that, and it freed me. He said that there's nothing wrong with dealing with snakes as long as you don't think they're bunny rabbits. So it's we can deal with snakes, but we just got to know what we're dealing with, okay? And so we can get there, but and everybody not going to agree with it. And that's what we was talking earlier about the everybody and all, and right, taking all those things out. We just need a critical mass, and we can make history. All right?
Agreed.
Thanks, brother.
I'm looking forward.
Thanks, Ruben. We have another caller. Caller, thank you for holding. You have a question or a comment?
I have comments. I want to compliment all of you on the work you do on the radio. My name is Marva, and I'm driving, so please forgive that, but I wanted to jump in. Brother Rahim, are you aware, when we talk about the conditions of the community, this big fight that we've got to save ourselves from the takeover that's being put forth right now as I speak, to take over basically the black community in Milwaukee in every way that you've spoken of this evening. Economically, take over our residential areas, as well as take over our schools. And I think the subterranean portion of this bill put forth by Alberta Darling and Kayanga also will dissolve our city government, much like what happened in Detroit. And our elected representatives have been totally silent on that, and it was presented publicly in January.
Actually, Mr. Islam is finding his alarm, cutting it off, but he has been in meetings regarding that exact subject, and he does have a response for you.
Yeah, you know what? And this is what you're saying is this is the most frightening thing that I see happening right now, and it really troubles me that there's no real response. And I know it really can't be a response, because any response will be an emotional one if it's not foundational response. And since we have no foundational response, we just left with emotional responses. So we're going to have to build the infrastructure. What is taking place? I wrote a couple articles just recently, and I called it the urban renewal is really urban removal. And I describe how they try to undermine and take away any political power we have where we are the majority. They have undermined every ability to mount any real campaign by removing all of the power bases that we have at our disposal. And if you look up in Philadelphia, where we had the parking authority, we had the housing authority, we had in addition to the government, the city government, we had the school district, we had the convention center. And that political mindset came in and undermined every one of them and took them away from the ability from the African Americans who were a majority in that city to have control. It is the same playbook that's being played all across the country, but it's being done legally. And so if there is no campaign, there's no organized effort to address that, what we see, the impact of these things that are happening, they will have 20 redistricting. The gerrymandering of the redistricting allows the conditions, the controls to stay in place for at least the next 20 years. And some of the things that are taking place, like Supreme Court nominees or placements, or state Supreme Courts, or court appointments, or different things or infrastructure are taking place, they prevent us from mounting any real challenge for the next 25 or 30 years. So yes, I am extremely concerned. I'm extremely concerned, and this is really where my frustration lies, because my frustration lies, and I have to be really, really careful to kind of control it and try to ensure that I can bring people together and not divide them, because they're looking for reasons not to come together. And so I will be a ready excuse for them not to come together when the very thing that we need to address these issues is got to come together. We cannot address these issues in a transactional way or a free agent kind of way. They got to be structured, because the oppressors and the enemies of our people have planned this to a T, and they're using all the tricks in the book. They're using every legal means to do it. And at the end of the day, the thing that gives them the fuel is the tremendous amount of resources they have that we do not have. Mm-hmm. So we're in a war. I even liken it being a war and a fight, and we're in a hatchet fight, and we have no hatchets. And to make matters even worse, not only they have hatchets and they are sharp, we're in the middle of the night, and they got light goggles. Right. And we are in the dark. So, but I still believe like a B.B. King. I believe like all of the great. There's a piece that you can go on my. I guess we can figure out how to get to. But I talk about a piece called The Eagle, and we are the eagle, and we're now been reduced to dealing with like chickens. But we can prevail. That is the thing that motivates me and keeps me focused. And now being able to strategically pull things together, that we have a base to begin the process. But we're not going to jump our way through this. We're going to have to earn this.
That's right. Yes, sir. You're absolutely right. I'm one that has been out here struggling, and I was at your event, and I felt much like Mr. Hopkins stated a few minutes ago. But what I can share with you is that the NAACP and a couple other organizations are having a come together as you speak of, on Wednesday evening at 5:30 at the NAACP offices on Martin Luther King Drive. And I would hope that we would get people from our community to stand up. I mean, they're pulling the rug out from under the north side of Milwaukee in every way you can think of. And it's supposed to go before the Joint Finance Committee on Wednesday.
Well, sister, we're gonna we got work to do, and I only thing that I can say is that there's nothing. We're behind, but there's nothing wrong with being behind if we're going to act like we're behind. But if we act like nothing, we all evil and equal, and we all free. We're gonna lose this, and we're gonna lose it for our children. I believe we have a window of opportunity. This generation has a window of opportunity to change the trajectory, but the window is closing, and with more and more tools being removed from us, and more structural challenges that are being set before us that will limit our inability to mobilize our numbers. And when that happens, and as is happening now, it's going to be much more difficult, coupled with a massive level of hopelessness that fundamentally we don't believe that we can do it. So my job, as I see myself, is to encourage you and others, and to encourage our community that we can be successful. And in spite of the massive disproportionate challenges that we face, I believe that we have it in our DNA, just like our ancestors, to be victorious. We just got to now redefine what victory looks like.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you so much for that pep talk.
Thank you for listening, and thank you for calling in. We have a caller. Caller, you have a question or a comment?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
I see.
Okay.
I heard Mr. Wade earlier this week.
Okay, sir, we can't. Either you're on a cell phone, or we can't hear you.
Probably turn your radio down.
You have to turn your radio down, or are you still okay? I think we lost that caller. Caller, we'd love to have you call back, so we can hear what it is that you wanted to share with us.
What I did hear him say was he wanted to talk about Alderman Wade and his
Alderman
comments.
Wade will be here in the next hour.
That is awesome.
So
that is awesome.
We're going to talk about Alderman Willie Wade, and he will be here live and in living color. And we're going to play the piece that the gentleman was talking about. And we still got some other stuff that we've got to unpack and talk about. But we're going to take a break right now and pay some bills. And we will be right back. You're listening to Universally Speaking with Rahim Islam on 860 AM WNOV, The Voice.
Let me show you the way. There was listening to the lyrics in that really speaks to what the sister earlier had called and said that, and also the level of hopelessness. We can work this out. We can work this out. We can do something about this. It's not. Trust me, it's tough. There's no question. It's going to be challenging. No question about it.
But together.
Hey, but we can do. What is life for if it's not for trying to advance our people, continue the struggle of our people? I think we can have fun. I think we can. We'll have some down times, but I think we can have more up times than we can have bad times. I can think we can have more good times, but we can work it out. We have to. We have no other choice. You talked earlier also about what Universal is doing, and I want to let our everyone know what we're doing at our Lee campus is soon to be open, and we're enrolling now our students, and so we have our principal, Ms. Dunlap-Parker here, who can talk to us about the importance of this Lee school. I mean, it's really, really, really important to restore that school back to its contribution to our community. Of teaching and educating not only our children but our community, and being an institution in our community. And so we're just honored to be a part of that transition, that transformation. So talk to us about what's your plans. You out there, you've seized the moment, and you leading the way. So why don't you give our listening audience a little bit about what your plans are for that school and where you are.
Well, I agree. I think that with the opening of UACB Lee campus, you guys have heard me say before, it's going to be a great place to be. Our scholars will be brilliant, engaged, and empowered, but not just our scholars, the families. So we're definitely going to work it out over on 9th and Meineke. We're fortunate to be a charter, so we can have an extended school day, extracurricular programming for students. But what I'm really looking forward to is the extended opportunity to instruct. Oftentimes, a young person, they're in school, it's some mandated hours for instruction. But I think at Lee, we're going to do this thing differently. We're bringing in the best administrative team in Milwaukee. We're putting together a phenomenal instructional staff, and we're emphasizing reading, mathematics, Spanish, gym, and we're looking at even an alternative schedule. Sometimes when you go to college or you go to high school, they operate on these different daily schedules. We're talking about a college-bound group of young people, and we're going to operate on a rotational schedule to maximize our students' opportunities to see and be exposed to all different areas of the fine arts and music education. But not just that, but it also gives us the opportunity to build a top-notch instructional staff. So our staff are able to start working more collegial with one another and start modeling lessons so that we can always be at the top of our game. So when you talk about working it out, I get excited. I've said it a million times before. I'm looking forward to a summer school, Saturday academies, but the addition of our parent-student community resource center will be second to none. Looking at some opportunities and working with our elected officials on a healthcare clinic right there in the community for our scholars, of course, because we have some state mandates, but for our parents too. I think oftentimes in our community we practice reactive healthcare instead of proactive healthcare, and we want to change that mindset. So I'm looking forward to Lee. But Lee is going to truly be that hub. It's going to develop that sense of community for our young people growing up. When we talk about leaving a legacy, we're reopening Lee, and Lee is here to stay. It is definitely going to be a great place to be. But we're bringing in the community. I find myself in several meetings over the course of a week, and just with different opportunities and with different stakeholders and with people who are really passionate about that community and want to see some change. So we're talking about bringing back and training community block captains and having organized neighborhood watches, town hall meetings. But overall, in just when we look at our universal company's mission, we're going to redevelop that community more than just building in our education system and rebuilding Lee, but rebuilding our homes, rebuilding our community, rebuilding and empowering the people who live there, and again making it a wonderful opportunity and a great place for our families. So I get excited. I'm elated.
Excited.
I get worked up.
Can you take a 58-year-old fifth grader?
I'm going to have to work with you, but you're one of our most gifted.
Can I go back to fifth grade?
She said you could be in the gifted.
But you definitely want to. I'm hoping that the people want to send their children. I mean, this is a tremendous opportunity. I'm really proud of what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish, and I'm hoping that the parents, especially who live in the area, those who don't live in the area, look to send their children to this school. I mean, because this is what it's all about.
It is, and it's an investment. I mean, when I think about being a parent and wanting the best for my child, I looked at, we talked about leadership a little earlier, I looked at the leadership in the buildings, and I was fortunate. I was growing up in Milwaukee. I had phenomenal teachers and principals that were just wanted a top-notch education for not just myself, but everybody that I went to school with. And I'm bringing that back. I can't imagine myself working, and I talk about it all the time. I get to get up and go to work every day and work my passion, and that's to help young people in Milwaukee achieve this college dream, this goal, be post-secondary ready, but just create a promising future for themselves, but realize the promise we have right here in Milwaukee and want to be here and want to make a difference. So I'm looking for 525 little change agents, grades K4 through 5th grade. I'm looking for their families to come on board, because we're not just talking about promoting your young person. We want to work with you too. It's going to be a collective. Our lights will be on. We're having a lot of community events, and we're looking forward to just embracing you wholeheartedly. And I think that when you find out a little more about the Universal Academy for the College Bound mission and our core values, you definitely want your scholar to be a part of it. You can enroll right now.
You have a number? Do you have a number?
I have a number. 439-5606 is our direct number to the UACB Lee campus. But also, you can enroll your scholar right now. Get on the MPS homepage, www.milwaukee.k12.wi.us.
Or Google MPS.
Or Google MPS and enroll. And when you click on, after you put in your early information about your scholar, it'll ask you to identify your school. We are site 616 is Universal Academies, but when it identifies you have a scholar K4 through 5th grade, it'll give you the option to choose your location. And we have our campus, our Millennial campus on Green Bay, but then we also have our Lee Street campus, 921 West Meineke. Select it. I mean, you're going to hear from us. We're looking forward to meeting you. There'll be a lot of events as soon as we can get in the building. I'm excited. I get to walk in the building on Monday because we have an opportunity for some grant money, and our funder wants to see our facilities. And that's what I'm about. I want to create opportunities for the school, but those opportunities will equal so many other opportunities for the families and the community as a whole.
You know what? I also want to give. I know MPS gets much aligned, and people throw all kinds of things up at them. They have been nothing but really supportive of the Universal and the mission of Universal tremendously, from Darian Driver, Dr. Driver, the superintendent, all the way down her staff, her key staff, the board of MPS, starting with Dr. Bonds and many of the other board members have been very, very supportive of this concept. So I want to. We would not be doing this without them. And their support and their belief in our capabilities and the mission that we have, and they're allowing us to fulfill this dream, this mission that we have, and we couldn't be doing it without them. So I want to make sure that that everyone knows that we're doing this in conjunction and in partnership with MPS.
And like I said, we talked about being a charter. It allows us to do things a little differently than MPS. And I think when we, as educators, when we look at the big spectrum of education, we realize there are populations of students that need a little more. And if you are a parent or a caring adult of a young person, and you realize and you're looking at them and you want something a little more, I really recommend you to take a look at the UACB model. We have scholars that would be grades K4 all the way through 9th grade, beyond, amongst all our Milwaukee campuses, and we're growing. And when I talk to people about Universal Academies, they always say, wow, I want to be a part of that because it's something growing. It's the new beginning. It's part of I want to be a part of something different. And I say to them, the day I clicked that website, I realized, I couldn't believe it was an organization that thought what I thought, believed what I believed, and is doing it for all the right reasons. So I encourage you to get involved. I think my second day of work, I was able to see the spring showcase, the 90s extravaganza, and it literally blew my mind. It was just a phenomenal display of all our students' talents, and it was hundreds of students involved, a jam-packed auditorium, but really celebrating the 90s experience, but the collectiveness and the community. And it was our two campuses coming together. I can't wait to put together my scholars. We're going to extend that championship. We're going to take a couple medals home to the UACB Lee campus. But I mean, it's good competition, and it's friendly competition, and it's healthy competition, because we want our students to be top notch and display their talents at all times, whether it's in the classroom, on a stage. So great opportunity. Make sure you enroll your student at UACB.
And how can we do that again?
The MPS the MPS homepage, there's a link to enroll students.
Okay, but what if I just want to go to uacb.org and click on the link?
You can do that. What's going to happen is you'll have to print out your application if you go to the uacb.org link. But I literally every Saturday am patrolling that Lee community from at least 10 to 12 p.m. or some of my staff will be out there. Look for us. I mean, that community has really embraced us, but we have applications with us. Worst case scenario, you get a couple free minutes, drop by either one of our campuses. We have applications right there. You can enroll your scholar right there on the spot. But then keep listening, because working out a plan is always a plan I'm working on, I'll be honest with you, but working out a plan, because we're going to bring ourselves more conveniently right there to the Lee campus on the playground a few Saturdays, weather permitting, but it is Wisconsin, so keep your fingers crossed. So we're going to be out there on the playground, and we're going to sign kids up right on the spot. And I think that's going to be really nice, because a lot of people are excited about going to the actual campus. Every time I meet someone, they say... Every time I meet someone, they're excited about Lee opening up.
So me and Keon going to join.
So you
Right.
got
So,
All right, now we got a couple fifth graders. Okay.
Yeah, I know, exactly. The funny thing, I have these, every periodically I have these dreams. I'm back in high school, like it's like a nightmare, but you know,
I want to go to that one though.
Yeah, but this one I'm choosing to. But I'm really excited. You know what I look at the innocence of our young people, and at some point that innocence wears out. When that innocence is gone, it also kind of almost equates to the potential is gone as well. We have to keep our young people more innocent. We got to keep them, got to protect them, and keep away the distractions. We have to fill them up with hope, knowledge, encourage them, and love. And so, yes, I think the core thing that we're attempting to do now. I'll be the first to say I'm the biggest critic of Universal. I'm the biggest critic. I'm the chief critic of Universal because I want it right. But I know it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to happen because we make it right. We struggle. We get knocked down. We get back up. We get knocked down again. We get back up. Every time we get knocked down, we get back up again. That's a victory. That's a victory for the building of the institution. People are anticipating, especially our people, and this is a psychological challenge that we have. They envision this outcome, but they're not prepared to work for it. You got to earn it. You know, I always say good schools really have good parents. When you have good schools, you have parents who just basically, they're not going to be denied. They're going to do what they need to do for their children. I'm really excited. We can play a role. We are going to play a role. We're going to do our job. The principal and her team is going to do their job. We need you to do your job. So for the mothers out there and the fathers out there with your children, send your children here. Also for those grandmothers we have so many grandmothers raising children today. Send your children here as well. We know we'll protect those children, we'll love those children, and we'll be an extension of you and everything you're trying to accomplish with your children. But most importantly, we're going to fill them with knowledge and information and arm them with ability of pride, that when they see us, they see themselves. They won't even understand and realize it to the point until they step out of that community and they see that now they have confidence that black people can do things. Black people can change things. Black people have been doing things for a long time, and we can now as well. And their children will feel that same sense of pride.
We are going to take a break, pay some bills real quick, and we're going to come back with, well, we're partners. We ain't competing against each other.
No, we're not in competition. Good. I wanted to say something about Universal Academy.
Well,
the commercials got to start right now. I mean,
you and Mr. Jones.
Are we running the station?
Are you
the station
on the floor?
running us?
Are you on the floor right now? That's Willie Wade. That's our Alderman Willie Wade.
He's gangster up in here.
Hey, look, you know what? Because we getting ready to change the subject, but the subject that you guys were speaking
we don't have to change that.
Are we still going to talk about Universal?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, let's pay some bills.
You had to get me straight. You got
let's
me
pay some
straight.
bills.
You get everybody straight.
We can talk about anything you want to talk talking about? How about that?
Well,
How about
look,
racism?
Universal Academy is a great thing to be talking about.
Okay.
So I want to chime in also.
Okay, so we will be right back after we pay some bills, Mr. Jones. You are listening to Universally Speaking with Rahim Islam on 860 AM WNOV, The Voice.
You know, this is an interesting conversation we're having because we're missing the point. The point is that the data and the research and the information points to a disproportionate amount of discrimination, prejudice, and racism on the way this law is enforced.
He said racism.
Law is enforced. Now, Alderman Puente just made an interesting point that if you have XYZ amount of marijuana on you, it's illegal and X, Y, and Z happens. Well, the data tells us that the same amount of white people, the same amount of Spanish people, the same amount of all kinds of people have the exact same amount of marijuana on them, but it comes down to the discretion of a police officer. So the point is, it's not being enforced properly. We're not talking about what the rule is and what the law is. If it was across the board and all the numbers were representative of the amount of people who were participating in this activity, there would be no need for us to make this adjustment in this legislation. But because of the discrimination, prejudice, and racism that's involved with the discretion of the police officers, the burden is falling heavy on black males in the community. Those are the facts. That's what's before us. So all of the other rhetoric that we're talking about are not the issue. The issue is, let's make the numbers proportionate. Let's make the issue marijuana possession. Let's make that the issue. That's not the issue. The issue is discretion among the police department discriminating against a certain segment of society. Now, I have a real concern about the reality because we're looking at the numbers and the statistics, and it's telling us the reality. The reality of treating black males unfairly is okay, but we all know that's a national crisis right now. It shouldn't be okay to treat anybody unfairly. All of the things that this city is being sued about, cavity searches, people dying in police custody. If this was happening to any other segment of society, could you imagine how we would be feeling if it was female Europeans cavity searches? Do you know what our reaction would be? We'd have to close down the universe. What if it was white males who were getting shot accidentally by black police officers throughout the country? Would that be something that we would be able to sweep under the rug? It's a national crisis. What we're talking about right here is doing something very minute to deal with what the national crisis is, which is the reality in this case, that it's okay to treat black males unfairly, even though we got all the data, all the statistics, all the numbers. And we're gonna sit in this room and act like none of that matters. If I flip this upside down and tomorrow morning, if this was white suburban kids or white males that this was happening to, and black police officers were enforcing it, all of a sudden everybody gets 20/20 vision. If this was white females, all of a sudden everybody can see clearly. But because it's black males and because our national crisis is okay to treat black males unfairly, we all want to act like we blind. Look at the numbers. Look at the facts. Look at the impact on the lives of the individual, and look at the impact on the community, and look at the impact on our taxing system. We're paying all of this money to house somebody in a jail, feed them for this small amount of marijuana. Let's stick to the facts. We're just trying to adjust something that's out of whack. But we got a bigger crisis to deal with. It is not okay to treat black males unfairly. It is not okay to treat anybody unfairly, especially when we have the facts and the data in front of us that's telling us that it's unfair. Wake up.
Wake up. Wake up. That is our very own Alderman Willie Wade, who is in the studio with us now. I'm not gonna tell y'all he ain't turned down none. He came in on that same note. Turned, as Rahim would say, turned up.
Don't tell Mr. Jones on me.
Oh, we showed him the video earlier.
Hey, I might act like that if Mr. Jones come in the room. I'm gonna act like Godzilla act when King Kong showed up.
He's like, it's gonna be a whole different.
Yeah, I don't want to breathe fire. I want to run to the water.
Well, I tell you what, Alderman Wade, that video is now viral. It has gone. It's on YouTube. It's on CNN. It's gone all across the country, and we're glad that you spoke up and said those things. And I know you're here today. You want to talk about the schools. I know it's the first time you probably had an opportunity. I know you people been talking to you and texting you or whatever, but let's hear what you got to say.
About which issue? The schools?
Let me just say this though, before he even say anything. I think that I'll just add on to what Ptosha said as relates to what you said is what we feel as a people, but too long that we haven't spoke to the powers that be about what our reality is. And so one of the things that I wrote, and I took a piece from one of my heroes is Huey Newton, and he said that every Negro had the potential to become black. They had to exercise that by doing something for the self-determination of our people. And so what you did was not that you needed that, but you were a black elected official. You weren't an elected official from one district. You were not an elected official that had this narrow focus. You were doing the self-determination of our people. You spoke for all the people and the black people in America who feel that way, who know they've been living that for all of their lives. And so I just say kudos to you, and I look forward to working with you, because that is where we have to be at. We have to have our elected officials be strong enough and brave enough to say the truth.
Well, thank you very much. When I hear it, and I actually looked at it, and I was quite passionate, but I was calmer than I thought I was when I was saying it. Because
that wasn't how you was feeling.
I was boiling on the inside, because it didn't make sense for us to have all that information and data for us to say we can't make a decision on this. The facts were before us. We should have made a decision. I wound up getting held in council, which means we'll be addressing it again in about 30 days. But that's the issue. A lot of people really felt that, what I was talking about, and that's been expressed through cyberspace, and with some links to CNN and YouTube, and I'm happy to hear that. But I think that's the discussion that we need to be having all across this country, that it's okay to treat black males any kind of way. I mean, you can't harm a dog. You can't do anything to a whale. Certain birds you can't touch, but you can actually kill in cold blood a young black male because they had a hood on, and you just automatically think you're the law and you're the judge and the jury, and because it's a black male that you can get away with that, because we allow people to get away with it. And I just want to express that it's time out for that. We need to really make sure that America is better than that, especially starting with the black community, that America, our country, and our black community, that we're better than that. Anybody who has a black son, any female who has a black son, they can relate to what I'm talking about, because the fear and the concern that they have about their son getting caught up in the wrong place at the wrong time and be part of this ridiculous stance in America is a real thought for them. So it was a passionate time for me.
Well, I think the other thing that I thought that I was kind of hurling the district attorney from Baltimore, because she did something to me that kind of, I will always remember that time and place where I was when I heard her announce the indictments against those 6 police officers. She reversed something that hadn't been done, that I don't know, countless numbers of district attorneys and state attorneys have had evidence of things that have happened to our men, young men specifically in the hands of police, and very few, if any, have been convicted or not convicted, or even accused or indicted. And so one of the things I wrote about in this latest article is to talk about the ongoing level of oppression that have taken back from slavery to Jim Crowism to the lynching to the practice of police brutality through they now call it stop and frisk, but the reality is they've been stopping and frisking us way before stop and frisk. But the point you're making is that, and I think that's been the theme of a lot of the protests around the country, is that black lives don't matter, and they don't, but they should matter to us. And as people of color, and they are our children, they're our babies, they're our boys, they should matter to us. And the question for us is then what do we do about it? And so we have to have a two-pronged attack. We have to have a private attack and a public attack. And you're leading the effort on the public attack because you're an elected official. You can go into that chamber. Everybody can't sit in that chamber and debate and argue and discuss. You can, because you're an elected official, and you took the position there that I think, again, that all of us believe and feel fundamentally and behind you 1,000%.
Well, thank you. I really do appreciate it, and it's a very, very important and vital issue to our community and to our country at this point. So we need to start making this a daily discussion.
Well, we discuss it every day. We discuss it twice a week here on the radio station. And if you've had an opportunity to read anything that Rahim has written, I don't know. I know you have briefs and legislation that you need to read, so you might not have quite as much time as everybody else.
Yeah, I don't like reading as much as I did before I got this job. I used to read all the time. Now I read when I have to read.
But we're definitely talking about it every day, and we're not going to stop. One of the things we talked about before you walked in was MCOL, and I know we've had discussions with you about that at the Milwaukee Community Leaders and what that looks like and how we can all work together and creating that agenda and giving it to and sharing it with the elected officials. And it's time. There ain't no other time. There ain't nobody else to wait for. We're the leaders. We are it, and it's time for us to make it happen.
Well, I've enjoyed everybody in this room. I mean, I have a professional and personal relationship with everybody in this room. That we've done things for the community, and we've done things just for our own mental health sake and just enjoying each other's company, and our children and things like that. So that's what community is all about. I don't have to just work and deal and interact with people, and they don't have to just work and deal and interact with me when it's about public stuff or professional stuff. It can be about private stuff, which is that two-pronged approach, but it also can be about who we really are and who we identify with as black people.
Right.
And those relationships are very important. And I'm blessed to say everybody in this room, I've had those type of relationships with over the years before I was an alderman and during the time when I'm currently an alderman. It's been great.
We are unapologetically black. No African Americans
sitting around
rolling with you.
No, because again, I think the way Huey stated that one of the things that we get trapped into is that, and that is a really complicated situation, because when the people look outside, they say, well, why is this community doing more? What's wrong with this community? And so I constantly say it's not really what they're doing to us. While they're doing a very good job to us, but it's really what we're not doing. And what we're not doing is, building on our own internal capacity, because again, we're going to get lumped together, but in reality, we're not working together.
Right.
The very thing that we need to get out of this mess that we're in is to have, I even say the U word is like the N word. I mean, it's like a poison to us when he talk about unity. So we don't need unity. I just say let's collaborate more. Just let us even collaborate. We will then see the things that are keeping us away from each other and dividing us. They're not that powerful. They're not that strong. But they've done a very, very good job of keeping us away from each other and keeping us limiting our ability to work together. And so when you go from being African American to being black, when you be black as a purpose, you're going to look for working with each other.
Always.
You're going to say, look, I'm black, I'm proud, I'm black and I'm proud, and I want to work with, I love black people. I'm not bashful about black people. I'm not apologetic about black people. I believe that we've got a raw deal in this country, but no one's going to cry for us. We got to do for ourselves. We got to stand up and we got to fight. We got to defend ourselves. We got to defend our women. We got to defend our children. We got to defend our boys, and no one's going to do that for us. We got to do it, and that calls for us to work together.
I think that too. Oftentimes we approach things so subjectively, and when we realize that we need to approach all these type of situations to bring our community together, to make us more stronger, it's not about subjectives and the people that are involved. It's about the larger objective. And I thank Alderman Wade for his courageous leadership, because I think that's what's lacking so much right now when we talk about leadership. Where is your courage? What are your values? What are your ethics about? What type of morals do you stand on? When I talk to people about just what they're doing, I talk about, how do you sleep at night knowing that you could have made a difference and didn't? I'm telling you, my head hit the pillow every night. I'm out like a lamp, and it's about 8:30 these days. So I mean,
wow, that's early.
That's early. I know. I
just getting going.
Yeah.
No.
Hey, if I go to bed before 1 o'clock 50 times a year, I'm lucky.
Yeah.
No. But I'm also up at 5.
Yeah.
So that's the little
I'm
difference, the
sleep at
give
5.
and the take. See,
Yeah,
that's the
exactly.
give and the take. But I mean, it's really about we've got to maximize every hour we are on this earth, active and engaging people, so we can create true change. We've got to be the change agents we need to see in this city, in this world, and it takes each of us one at a time. But like he said, if we can pull ourselves together, we all bring something to the table.
We will.
When we pull ourselves
we
together
will.
with
We
our
are.
community and leaders.
We
That's
are
right.
now.
That's right. When we pull that together, we're going to be awesome.
See, you don't need me no more.
Tosha's been like, go ahead, Ptosha.
Thank you, Rahim. See, I already got my replacement for you right there. So, one thing we talked about before you walked in, and Delta Triplet has also joined us, and Rahim will say, well, man, you connected to everybody. Delta and I went to high school together.
Yep.
And I don't even know how long I've known Willie. He knew my kids before I had kids.
Man.
So we are all three of us involved in something in the community. Big event this Sunday. Universal is a sponsor. Courier Communications is also a sponsor. And it is a benefit called Stepping with the Stars. So one of the things that you've talked about, Rahim, is we can come together as a community and make things happen and do things, and we can have some fun while we're doing it.
Right.
It's not all that meetings that we got to sit in and things like that, but we can come together and show how we can all come together as a community for a cause, for a benefit. And this particular benefit is being held for the late husband of a dear friend of ours, Lisa Smith McCants. And each of us, I tell you, Lisa's probably one of the people that I know that everybody considers her their best friend. They're like, oh yeah, that's one of my best friends, because she's everybody's best friend. She's always there for everybody. And her husband, Edison, passed away a couple years ago. And Lisa has been putting on this benefit, and all of the proceeds go to Aurora Cancer Care Center. on behalf of Edison McCants. And this is an event called Stepping with the Stars. Now, I by no means consider myself a star. These other gentlemen sitting...
I see your picture on this flyer under stars. This must be a misprint.
I'm gonna let
She's just trying to be humble.
I'm going to let the gentlemen who have joined us, I'm going to let the gentleman who had the floor, that had the floor on the video we just watched.
And she looks good, y'all.
Hey,
So you know.
like a supermodel.
I'm telling you.
So many of my friends, when I hand them this, they say, man, who is that?
I'll pay you later, really. I'll pay you later.
I say, you know what? She major league, you triple A. You might want to look at somebody else on the page.
She is truly the
True story. Willie saw me after about 2 years after my divorce. Was it not? And we were just walking. We said, and Willie stopped and said, "Hey, wait a minute, Ptosha, something different about you."
She's free.
It was that waiting to exhale.
She's free.
Hey, I started looking around in my district and see if there was any cars on fire.
He just said, he was like, "Something, you just look different." But yeah, I'll never forget that moment. I was like, "Thanks, Willie."
Yes, I think I love. First of all, I love that concept, and I really like stepping, but I don't know how to. But I definitely
We don't either.
So you getting taught?
Yeah,
oh,
so
okay.
that means you'll be in it next year.
Oh yeah, okay.
You'll be in it next year.
Yeah.
So each one of us goes to practice or rehearsals with a professional stepper.
Oh, okay,
And
great.
On this Sunday, it'll be a competition. There will be 7 women and 6 or 7 men, and each of us, the men compete against the men, the women compete against the women, and at the end of the night, there will be a new 2015 Stepping with the Star King and Queen.
Oh, okay, sounds good.
And so go ahead.
And I just want to say, my the partner that I have, Cheryl Poe, lives in Atlanta, Georgia. So she flies into Milwaukee like twice a week to teach me how to. And I'm bow-legged, I'm pigeon-toed, I'm knock-kneed. You know, anybody ever seen me walk?
He was an athlete.
Hey,
he was
anybody
a ball
ever seen
player.
me walk? They ain't got to see my face. They can see me walk. They say, that's Willie Way. But she flies in. I got to go pick her up at the airport at 5:20 today because she's coming in.
Oh, great.
But she comes in, and she has been a great teacher. She has been patient with me. And just for her to give her time for this cause is truly amazing. And you called Lisa's husband Edison. I'm gonna call him by his street name, Toppy. Yeah. I grew up with Toppy, one of my guys. Toppy and I had great fun together. But Ptosha, you also had a tragedy in your life with cancer that really. I felt that for so long. I mean, every time I saw you, I always wondered, what should I say? Should I bring it up? Because I don't know if you want to talk about that publicly.
Losing my daughter. So each of us is, and you recently just lost your mother also.
Right, I lost
to
my
cancer.
mother.
So most of the people in this event, if not all of them, are stepping or dancing in honor of someone, a loved one or a relative, or someone who lost the battle with cancer.
Yeah. What about you, sir?
It was for my grandmother. So
who are you?
I don't. This is Delta Triplet, y'all. So, but for
Who
me,
is this?
This is Delta Triplet.
Oh, okay. All
okay.
Right.
So let me just say this part for me. It was one thing for me to step for my grandmother, but recently, this past Monday, we were at rehearsal, and I had a significant pain in my left abdomen area. And I couldn't even dance properly because the pain was so great. And Lisa told me, she said, you need to go get that checked out. Well, I went to the hospital. I was rushed to the hospital at 2 a.m, and it was my colon. Wow. So they were going to actually do emergency surgery, and thank God they were able to do it with antibiotics. That I'm here to be able to even dance this Sunday. So I'm just, it is truly personal to me now that I'm actually here, and I'm telling every black man, get out there and get tested for colon cancer. Get your colonoscopy, get your prostate checked, because it's not a joke. It is not a joke, y'all. We need to make sure we're here for our kids, that we're here for our community. We cannot do it. They cannot do it without us, and they need us, and we have to be able to take care of ourselves. Put your pride to the side and handle your business.
Yes, and I just want to add to that, all of that stigma about how the test is conducted and what they have to do, that's childish.
Right.
We grown adults, we need to grow up and understand that there's nothing wrong with trying to be healthy, and whatever the process and the procedure is, we have to man up, quit being immature, grow up and act like men, and get tested.
That's right. That's right.
Well, hey, look, I'm in agreement 1,000%.
You don't know how to follow that.
In fact, I have my second colonoscopy in about 3 weeks.
That's all
There
right.
you go,
You
my
know,
man.
So
all right.
I had one probably about 5-6 years ago, and then I'm having one in a couple weeks. And I've definitely been with my urologist on a regular basis because of once you, I guess, you're gonna have to wait till you're 50, but clearly after 50 you want to make sure that's a situation, and you want to make sure that you watch and monitor the prostate, because the prostate clearly it can almost just fool you. You won't know that you're you're really struggling until it's too late. And so you have all the signs, and you gotta just gotta know your body. But they're telling us to wrap up.
See, you guys promised me I was gonna get the comment on
I know.
Universal Academy.
But here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do it Monday.
Are you available Monday?
Yeah.
I'm not available Monday.
No?
No. I
Can
won't
you-
be
can-
back. I can come back Friday.
You can call in, can't you?
I can come back Friday.
You
Can
can
you
come
co-
back Friday.
I can come back Friday.
Okay, come back Friday. Okay.
All right.
All right. We'll come back. Well, you're not going anywhere.
But you can give a shout out to Universal if you need to.
Well, my cousin and I, Mark, we went over to the Green Bay campus and read for some kindergartners, and what a wonderful experience. We walked out of the school, and we was outside talking for another half hour on the experience of how good it felt, because the kids were so smart, so disciplined. They were so inquisitive, so respectful. The teachers were so sharp. We walked in the building. We was like, is the school open? It was so quiet in the building.
Right.
It was just amazing. That was my first time going into one of their campuses. And I know me and Mark just sit back and like, wow, this can be done right here in a neighborhood where people say it can't be done. It can be done at a high level. So I just want to give some kudos out to everybody who's involved in it, because if that's any type of example of how it is at the rest of the campuses, I would say parents, you better get in line, because it's going to be a line forming. It's a great educational experience overall. Environment, especially, very safe, very clean. Very mannerable. I'm still coming back Friday, but I just was overwhelmed by it, and I had to express myself. So thank you.
We
Well, thank you.
appreciate that. And thank you, listeners. Thank you for our callers. Thank you for all of our guests,
Right.
Delta and Willie. I will see you on Sunday.
Absolutely.
Hey, and good luck to both of you.
And also, I want to encourage everyone to read the article. The article is really important, but again, it's about what does we do next. Next is very important. After the marches, after the vigils, after the rallies, we got work to do.
Well, I'm making a commitment to start Monday's show with an excerpt of this article, because it is one of my top 3 that you have written. So,
Okay. Well, that means something.
We'll be back on Monday, same time, 3 p.m., same station. Thank you for listening. And as always, thank you to our mentor, our leader, our elder, Mr. Jones,
Absolutely.
for having us. We appreciate you. Peace.
Peace.